Good evening, everyone. Welcome. I'm Karen Davidov, founder of the Jewelry Library. For those who don't know us, we are a collaborative research and exhibition space located in New York City's Nomad neighborhood, and we host a wide variety of events across the jewelry spectrum, both in person and virtually. A curriculum on collecting is a multi-part project in collaboration with sisters Emily Jockel, a registered architect and artist based in New York City, and Luci Jockel, an artist, jeweler, and educator located in Baltimore, Maryland. We wanted to do a deep dive into what it means to collect in the 21st century with a series of conversations. This came out of our own discussions about collecting, often over breakfast, during Luci and Emily's joint exhibition, Sisterhood, Bodies in Proximity, which we hosted for New York City Jewelry Week in 2021. And while every conversation touches on jewelry in some way, particularly tonight, we also talk about broader issues around collecting with various experts weighing in each time. We do record them, so if you've missed the others, they are available on the Jewelry Library website and on YouTube. Tonight's conversation is about the value of collections, and we have three wonderful guest panelists that Luci and Emily will introduce. Please put your questions in the Q&A, and we'll get to those at the end. If you haven't, please let us know where you're zooming in from. I hope it works this time. It didn't the last time. I'm going to pop out and listen in. So Emily and Luci, over to you.
Thanks, Karen. I'm Emily Jockel.
And I'm Luci Jockel.
Thank you all for joining us tonight for our fourth installment of a curriculum on collecting. If you'd like to get a more in-depth introduction to Luci's and my story, please watch the first panel discussion. I think we can drop that first panel link in the chat for you.
So we'd now like to introduce our panelists who will each give us a presentation before we begin the conversation. And Joe will drop their contact info in as well as ours in the chat. So we encourage you to add to the chat where you're from and what you collect. And over to Emily now.
So first up, we have Michelle Nakata-Murray. Michelle, if you want to hop on with us. Michelle Nakata-Murray is a California-born, Northwest Connecticut-based jeweler and artist. She launched her collection, Hisae Jewelry, in 2016. Michelle's practice centers around the transformative power of beauty, lessons in nature, and exploring the known and lost parts of her ancestry through the medium of jewelry. Michelle, we'd love it if you could share your screen and share a little bit about your practice.
Okay. Perfect. Thank you so much for inviting me to be a part of this conversation. I'm really happy to be here. I'm Michelle, and I'd love to share a little bit about my work. A quick background, I found my way into jewelry after college. I actually went to school for business and worked in the fashion industry for a couple years and was looking for a hobby, really, where I could express myself creatively and just as kind of an outlet. I came across a lost wax casting class in my neighborhood in Brooklyn, and completely fell in love with the intricacy and the science and the material and process of jewelry and small metals. I honestly, after I took that class, every professional decision I made after that was really easy. So that was about 10 years ago, and I've been working on my collection, Hisae, ever since. My work, the slide is titled Jewelry as Ancestral Language. My work is an exploration into my personal lineage, more specifically my maternal lineage, which is Japanese. I'm very devoted to understanding the Japanese American experience and how it differs from the native Japanese experience. And other topics that I love to explore are beauty and the power of jewelry as a form of personal transformation, figures in nature, and how the miracles of nature kind of influence our creative processes in our lives. Specifically with ancestral language, one way that I know how to explore my own feelings is through art. And so through writing and reading and photography and the whole creative process, including the act of making jewelry, I've gotten to do this. And as a lot of jewelers know, making jewelry is very meditative and a very peaceful process, but can also be very aggravating and frustrating. And I've found that it's a really great container for exploring kind of the tougher topics in life. I'll show you a few slides of my work. I think that everything in nature is a miracle. And so not only the materials, but also figures in nature, these are ways that I evoke feeling in the pieces that I create. Here, the Kaori ring and the Suki ear huggers kind of speak to flowers on a vine, and on that vine could either be leaves or thorns, depending on how you look at it. The middle pieces are my pebble studs, which I just love. I love pebbles, and I love rivers and streams as bodies of water. A lot of my work is inspired by architectural motifs, specifically Japanese architecture. On the left, I'm actually wearing those earrings right now. Gates, torii gates, and different motifs in joinery in terms of woodworking. And on the right, that's the shoji band, which was inspired by a shoji screen. I also love soft structure and asymmetry. I love asymmetry and finding ways to create balance within asymmetrical parts. A lot of my pieces, if they do have more geometric shapes, they will be very soft and very cozy and comfy to wear. The Lila Suprema here on the right is one of my favorite pieces, and I feel like it speaks to my aesthetic very well. I do also take on custom work throughout the year. So here's a handful of my favorite custom projects. They range from custom engagement to celebrating anniversaries to tokens that speak to a specific time period in somebody's life. And I thought I would end on some of my personal collections. In addition to jewelry, I love reading biographies of artists and just learning about how they live their lives and the things they were interested in. It is very inspiring for me. And then naturally, I collect many gems, so many of which may never get made into a piece of jewelry, but that's okay. And they're perfect as they are.
Beautiful in their own right.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Michelle, for sharing with us and for joining us today.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Michelle. Okay, next we have Ada Chen. Ada Chen is an artist and jeweler who creates work based on her experience as a Chinese American woman and is exploring anti-capitalist and anti-imperialist and abolitionist themes. She hates bananas, loves noodles, and is proud of everyone for living life to the best of their abilities. Thank you, Ada, for joining us. We'd like if you'd share your screen. I think, Michelle, you have to stop sharing first. There we go.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me as well.
gonna just share my screen. Okay. So similar to Michelle, I create from a place of like defining the specific experience of being Chinese American and like separating that from being Chinese in China, also being like American in whatever way, like white American, acceptable American. So yeah, I just like realized this part of my identity when I moved to Brooklyn for college at Pratt Institute. I just felt like there were so many like Chinese international students that I could relate to on some level, but not entirely. And then I felt myself relating more to maybe like people of color who were American, who weren't specifically Chinese. So then I started, after sharing my experiences with all the different kinds of American, I really took pride in being Chinese and being raised that way. So this is a slide of just like my thesis work. I made grills that say speak Chinese, we're in America, that go with speak English, we're in America, and earrings. I have some text message earrings that talk a lot about like Asian fetishization. So this is just like a big mishmash of like little parts of being Chinese in America that bleed into being East Asian in America as well. And then when I graduated, this is kind of like where my work went. Then this Made in Chinese America necklace was very inspired by the Made in China golden sticker. Again, it's like that difference between like how specific my experience is in America, and how like the cheapening of my culture stands in this country as well, because everyone says made in China, like the quality's bad. And it kind of, and people treat us as people that way too. So this is kind of like me re-owning that and taking pride in that. And then eventually though, I made another necklace that says made to abolish America, because at some point it's like I can't really be proud to be American anymore either. So but we'll get into those themes later. And so these are just, I got into acrylic work because it's a lot of fun. Here we have my mooncake earrings at the top middle. It's to celebrate the Mid-Autumn Festival. That is a holiday that's like really special to me. It's celebrating abundance and a harvest in the fall. We have zodiac meme charms, where I made charms that are kind of like reflective of the Chinese zodiac, but in meme form. And then the bottom section is my abundance collection, when I just had gone through a breakup and like I needed to feel abundant in my life. And these are all Chinese motifs that represent that. And then here's more acrylic work that I make so that my work can be more accessible. This is like, my acrylic work is my best selling work, even though it's not sustainable. But it makes me feel very joyous when people are excited to have these earrings for holidays, and to express themselves loudly and proudly. And then here is just some of my metal work that I got into recently. It's not as like, it doesn't sell as well, I think, but I've created these kind of from a place of like just simply what I like, and like, because all of my other work can be labeled Chinese, there was a point where I just didn't want to be pigeonholed anymore, even though I will be regardless because of what I look like in my descent, which is fine. It's totally fine. But that's the reality of it. And also having a business for like a couple years, my relationship to my work has kind of like
has kind of soured in a way because I'm making it to sell and like not for myself. So these pieces are kind of like for me to kind of return to making things that simply make me happy without thinking about my audience, without thinking about like as sellability as much. But on this ring right here was a custom order from my friend. That's 18 karat gold and purple jade. It's kind of harkens to Chinese paintings of mountains and scenery and a tree. And this is just an example. This Pegasus is an example of the 3D work, the 3D rendering work that I've learned to do and I'm really excited about. And these grills on the bottom right are just something that I have perfected over a few years. Thank you to my friend for commissioning me, because those are hard to get the fit because, you know, metal shrinks. And there's no like calculable way to do it. I found you kind of just have to squeeze the wax a little less hard so that it shrinks to the perfect size. So yeah, that is an introduction to my work, and that's about it.
Thanks, Ada. That was really useful about the girls because I have a couple students who are trying to do that. So thank you. It was awesome to see your work too. And thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much, Ada. Ada is showing with our next panelist, Kate Connell, at New York City Jewelry Week in a show entitled What's Precious at the Jewelry Library, opening on Friday, November 18th. So we hope that you will see them there. Kate Connell. Kate, if you want to join us on your video. Hello.
Hi. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining us. So Kate is an interdisciplinary artist living and working in San Francisco. Her studio practice focuses on small sculpture, especially earrings. She works with a variety of media, including wood, eggshells, beer packaging, as well as toys and metals. She and Oscar Malara collaborate as Book and Wheel, producing social practice art projects that invite play, welcome tenderness, and resist gentrification. Connell is a longtime librarian, so she comes to us from a place, definitely a place of collections. Kate, if you would share your screen, we would love to learn more about your practice.
Thanks. So yeah, half of my practice is social practice art, and Oscar's in my current project. All of our projects serve Southeast San Francisco, where we live, have lived for a few decades, and our goal is really to celebrate how wonderful that part of the city is, but just among residents, not so much as an invitation. And so our current project is called Chispa. We take our Chispa art cart out to different locations in the 4 working class neighborhoods of Southeast San Francisco. And then we mount reprints of reproductions of work by local artists on the cart. And we set up tables and invite people to draw or write something to trade with us for copies of the prints that are on the cart. And you can, so this little girl is trading something that she made, dropping it into the slot on the Chispa cart. Let's see. Here are some of the images from the Southeast San Francisco Artist Portfolio, which is the collection of prints that we curate and mount on Chispa. And I put our website in because we also trade through the mail. And in the middle row, you can see where the globe is. That's a pastel that Oscar did on the topic of migration. And then skipping over to the dead center is Ada's sticker that she designed for Chispa, which is based on the necklaces and rings that she makes. And then on the far right is one of the prints of my earrings, which is in the collection portfolio. The other side of my practice is a studio practice in sculpture. And in the past, I worked on large sculpture installations, collaborations with musicians. But now I'm really interested in very small sculpture, especially earrings. And so these earrings are made from gum wood and balsa wood. And they're what I think of as very wearable earrings. So that's kind of half of what I do. And then the other half are earrings that I think of as storytellers. So talking about the Southeast and again, celebrating it. So the Especial special earrings on the left were made from the beer cartons on the right. And I think of these as kind of emblematic of this storytelling collection. And then when I have them photographed and printed as two-sided prints, sometimes I use the back of the earring as I've made it, and other times I alter it to kind of bring in more content. So on the back of Especial is this poem called, "Is This Beauty for You?" And it's it's found poetry composed of lines taken from posts on the social media app Nextdoor. And so the goal is to kind of subvert what is sometimes negative content on the posts that I'm drawing from, and then to reorganize the lines so that they really end up celebrating these neighborhoods that we live in. This pair of earrings is called Dock of the Bay, and I collected the shells for it along the San Francisco Bay shore in the Bayview district. And then Oscar drew the score for Dock of the Bay by Otis Redding, written in the late 60s, onto the earrings. And there's images of Heron's Head Park, which is the park on the right, on the back of this printed card. And then on the left is how the cards look, the format. This pair of earrings is called Connect the Stars. And on the right is the cover of the book that I'm working on for the show that Ada and I are working on, that Ada's curating. The book is called Earring Thinking. And so I'm it's sort of in the form of a mini portfolio with 15 different two-sided earring prints that can also be cut out in the book. And then each print can be traded for individually. And that's the story.
So beautiful, Kate. Thank you for sharing with us today. There's so much to talk about. So I think let's just jump right in. We'll talk for a while, and then maybe around 7:45, we'll pull questions from the Q&A. So if you participants out there want to drop your questions in at any time, you don't have to wait, please do.
Okay, let's get started. So the first question is, how is the word collection defined relative to your work? So help us to contextualize your position today. And anybody can start, and everybody in here can unmute themselves.
Yeah, we don't have to be so polite.
I can start. I use the word collection all the time. I think about it. I think about my work as a collection that is constantly evolving. Since I'm a production jeweler, I do work new designs into my collection that hopefully will be there for a few years, but I'm very open to the edit and how that occurs over my lifetime. And hopefully at the end of my career, it will be so precisely me. That's the goal.
Great goal.
Ada or
No, Keiko.
So as a librarian, I really think of, well, Michelle, you were just describing very actively managing a collection. And from the perspective of librarianship, I really think of, the work of managing a collection. And I kind of use like our portfolio and the storytelling earrings and the found poetry as three separate collections that can vet each other. So if I haven't made an earring about a topic that I see on Nextdoor that I want to make a rearranged poem about, then that gives me an idea for what can be added to the earring collection. And by the same token, I guess Nextdoor actually is a really good vetting tool, because then reading in Nextdoor, I think about the things in the portfolio that challenge the ideas that I don't agree with in those posts. So I really like using them to assist each other in terms of complexity and filling lacuna or empty spaces in the collections.
Okay.
Okay, I guess it's my turn, right? I think of collection in my own life. I think it's just like collecting items that are so fun that I like am so happy and grateful to like be able to live with, like a fuzzy stool or a great mug. I can't stop buying mugs, like, and even like earrings, of course, like clothing and everything that goes on my body is like collecting. But I think about it more in those terms. And I guess that kind of translates to how I make work, is like what would be so fun for me to have and for me to enjoy. I think that's like simply my answer.
Enjoyment is a great criteria, like even the bottom of all criteria, right? There are so many overlaps here, and I think transitioning to our topic of value, it sounds like you use there are multiple ways in which your own work informs itself, right? And everyone sort of has a different balance there of sort of, and I'm reading your practices to some degree have some accessibility component, and then they have this other thing, which is maybe a little less accessible and a little more self-exploratory. So there's this sort of making work to share, to exchange, or to sell versus making work for ourselves, which has its own value. All that to say, what is precious? How do you define value in your practices? What makes an object valuable? There's so many ways we can get in there. So as you wish.
I mean, I guess I think of, I'm really pretty focused on earrings, and I think they're especially valuable to me if they prompt a connection with other people. So I think what's precious is the connection that arises through the prop of jewelry, or in my case, earrings.
Yeah, I completely agree with that answer. It's like, it's really who made this thing that I'm going to have a relationship with this object with, you know, like, of course, if something brings me joy, I'll buy it. And like my relationship is intimate and like the value is my own interpretation of what it does for me. I know that's like a lot of empty words, but like, yeah, so for me, it's never really how much it costs. That only becomes important when it's maybe an obstacle, you know, which in that case, then it's like sad that I can't like form a connection with this because I can't have it or I can't own it. But maybe now I can talk to the person who made it, and that's the value in the piece, is like Kate said, the connection that I'm able to make with the person.
Yeah, I had all the same thoughts. The pieces that I make are always deeply personal, and are an investment, and so it will naturally, those will kind of meet. The willingness to like invest a significant amount in a piece, there has to be a lot of emotion that's coming behind it, and it has to be significant. Maybe it's like marking a moment in time, or it's marking a version of ourselves, or it's speaking to an aspirational part of ourselves. But it's always very, very kind of soul driven, in the experiences I've had with my customers and pieces that I make for myself or buy for myself.
So much great stuff in here. I don't know, Lucy, do you want to jump into the?
Yeah, I want to bring up what we're thinking of value in a much more broader sense than monetary value, but I want to bring in the monetary value aspect because it started to get interesting the other day when we touched on that, when we had a brief meeting, and how can we maintain, I'm trying to think of how to word this, I guess, how do we maintain that prioritizing value in the way that you were all speaking of it, while still thinking about monetary value and making sure that we're getting paid at the same time. So I know that's a big topic, but I wonder if anybody would want to jump in on that.
I mean, I can tell you what I told you guys yesterday, is like, it's really when you pay an artist for the price that they set, in the world that we live in, we have to talk in words of like monetary exchange, which sucks. But like really what you're paying for is their life and their ability to continue expressing themselves in the way like of jewelry for us, for example, in their art. You are saying to them that your life is worth living, so continue. I'm gonna like give you this. And it sucks that it has to be like a number label instead of like saying that like, hey, I'm going to give you money so you can like pay rent so that you can feed yourself, so that you can continue making this work that is so impactful, obviously, to other people as well. Yeah, so it's just like really, it sucks that we have to think of it in that term, because if we took money out of it, we could just acknowledge each other's talents and gifts kind of directly.
Yeah, so changing the way that we word it rather than, or I think what you were saying was you're paying to support me versus you're just paying for the thing, which there's a lot more to the thing that you're buying, but you're also doing much more than that. You're allowing me to continue to express myself through this medium. So changing like the word, how we speak about it.
Yeah.
I get that you're paying for someone else's energy, right? With your energy, with your money, which is just another way to say your spent time and energy. Money has really been villainized as a term, but I think that perhaps money is a generic way to exchange value. versus bartering, which is a very specific way of exchanging value. So I'm curious to dig into the topic of your show and this process of bartering and understanding better like how far you think the concept of bartering can take us, and what can we learn now from what maybe could be considered an sort of an old system or a pre-money system.
I liked what you were saying, Ada, yesterday about braiding sweetgrass and although I guess it doesn't exactly address what you're talking about. But Ada, you really brought in the idea of mutual aid into the show.
Yeah, because it was also inspired by Kate, your practice book and wheel, because it was like, that was what started the spark in my brain, which is like, okay, when we trade, when it's like, I trade an item for an item that you made, like an artist to an artist, for example, it's like, we're already acknowledging directly that like each other's work has value. Whereas I feel like money is sometimes an obstacle where it's like someone will not think that the art that you made is worth that number. So then it's already like, okay, like I don't acknowledge that, you know, I don't acknowledge that your work is worth that much. And so, yeah, so braiding sweetgrass, the author comes from the Potawatomi indigenous group, and they talked about how strawberries are basically a gift from Earth. They grow without anyone telling them to grow, but they're just like there and you can eat them, and that's such a gift. Like nobody earned that, you know, but seeing it as a gift rather than going to a grocery store and buying it for like $6 for like a huge thing, right? Like your relationship to the earth in the moment that you are picking it from the ground, from the earth, is different from going to the store and just seeing the price tag. So in a way, like gifting and bartering is more building that relationship, whereas when money is exchanged for an item, it stops the transaction right there. You don't have to talk to anyone. You don't have to know where the strawberries came from. You just eat them and that's it. Whereas if you're like going and finding them out in the fields, you're like, oh, this strawberry is like so cute. And I can eat it. And now it will also prompt me to plant more strawberries. And in that way, then your relationship to the strawberries extends, if that makes sense. So we can kind of apply that to like art and like what we create too. If we see like an artist making their work as a gift to the world.
Yeah, couldn't have asked for a better answer. Yeah, thanking that strawberry and promoting more of that strawberry is the best gift you can give for that strawberry there.
Michelle, I'm curious what your thoughts are on this, because you work in a little bit of a different, more like fine jewelry area than more of like art jewelry, which we're all kind of dabbling in between them all, but I'm just wondering kind of what your thoughts are.
Yeah, I'm constantly thinking about price just because my costs are very high. At one point, I decided to stop making pieces in silver, not because I never want to work in silver again. It was just becoming very taxing on my body and keeping up with a production style business, making pieces that were not making me enough money to live. And I was seeing the toll that it was taking on my body. And so I had to readjust and understand how much more I needed to value myself in the process and where I could find more longevity in my career. So I was looking at it more long game. And I definitely will bring silver back in, or in different ways, or different other, it doesn't have to be like a metal, any materials that I would love to explore other materials. I'm slower. I'm slower in like finding what works for me and finding what doesn't. So like in that moment, just focusing on the materials that excite me and that like really, really support me felt good.
I guess I can't help but think about labor. Like Oscar and I are longtime union members, and I feel like that's really been a support to me in terms of my artistic life. And I think the principle's really the same, that, you know, in organized labor, you're really in collective bargaining, you're really negotiating as hard as possible for fair compensation and respect. And I feel like in a way that's what's being discussed here too, is, you know, just that appreciation for humans that make your life possible in different ways and then make adornment possible. So I don't know, I hadn't thought about that yesterday, you know, getting ready, but it just really labor of course comes up in terms of making jewelry, but benefits of organized labor, or the fruits of organized labor, and how that's applicable.
I also wonder, Michelle, if you had not any like living expenses, like what if you were provided for, like if you had shelter, if you had like food, that you were just like comfortable. I wonder if you would have pivoted to, you know, like the more luxurious materials, you know. But I see, you know, the value in that too, because gold and diamonds are like actually really great as materials that last. I understand that part, you know. I wonder where your work would have gone if you hadn't had to like struggle to like make money, you know. That's just a question. Yeah.
I think that's a great point. And it really, you like really heard me, because I want to circle back to that. Like I felt like I was pushed out of it in a way. And now I want to kind of make my way back toward it, but in a more balanced way.
Right.
Yeah. Right. If I don't have to make 20 of that thing and I could only make one of that thing, that would be a lot more joyous.
Yeah. That's so relatable though.
Yeah.
Have you bartered before, Michelle, in your work? Because I know you said you've made pieces for friends. Have you ever kind of like exchanged before?
Yeah. Yeah. And we usually use the dollar amount as the baseline. So I will equally, trade. And it's usually for a monetary cost. I'm always, happy to do that.
Yeah.
Michelle and I bartered 2 weeks ago. We bartered our time to give each other advice in this like 4-hour marathon of woman to woman honest exchange. Doesn't only have, it can be verbal, I think too.
Absolutely.
I'm curious how you guys you're talking about labor, Kate, and how being in a union is advocating for your own value. And I'm wondering how you determine what your work is worth, what goes into that equation for you, how much of it is, you know, supporting yourself, and how much of it is emotional, and how much, you know, what's that criteria?
So I don't sell rings. Now I have prints that can be traded for, and I think once the book is complete, because I'll be except for in our exhibition, but because I'm paying the bookbinder her, you know, a fair rate, then I'll need to think about selling the book. But the prints came out of a project that Oscar and I wrote a lot of grants for. So Chispa and the portfolio were largely grant supported to get started. So that gave me I mean, there was the work of the grant writing, which is extensive, but it gave me a kind of cushion in terms of production, having materials to trade. So I don't have an answer for selling, because it's kind of a different situation.
Ada, what about you? I wondered too, because you have these different, you section your work in different ways, which I thought was really interesting. Like you have work that you just make for yourself, which is inspiring, and I feel like I'm gonna start doing that now. And then you had like 2 other sections of work. So how are you considering value in your work, as Emily was asking?
I don't know. Like price wise is always like the hardest part for me. Like that's always the hardest, like the most stressful part of making my work. Cause like the stuff that I did make for me, I still had to put a price on it, like just in case, like, okay, if you want it, you know, you can have it. But I don't know. It's just, I think that is the part that has like kind of ruined my relationship to my craft, is like having to constantly like sell myself and like convince other people to buy my stuff, you know? And so I don't know, that's like really hard. Like I wish I could just like never have to sell my work again. But like the other option is to sell my labor, you know, and that didn't work out the first time when I had a full-time job for like 7 months, and I was like, all right, I can't do that. Okay, I'm kind of forgetting the question a little bit. It's like as I'm talking, but
Okay, I can totally relate to what you're saying. I think a lot of people here can relate to what you're saying, that struggle. It's just how do you determine what something is worth, or in a bartering situation, how do you determine like what you want in exchange? And I suspect that a large part of that is just like socially, whatever happens in that exchange determines the outcome. But curious.
yeah, right. It's usually, I don't know, I feel like I never really put an amount of money on it when I have done an exchange. It's just like, I really love this thing of this other artist and I will do whatever you want, basically, is how it goes. Usually it's reasonable. I don't know. Maybe I'm lucky that way.
Michelle, how do you get there?
I feel like it's easy because I have a formula. Like there's just coming into production jewelry, like there is a formula for how to price things. So that felt easy. And then in terms of, yeah, I try not to discount my work. It's been hard. But I had to do a lot of work around, yeah, asking people to pay you is like really, really uncomfortable. And then I had someone say to me, people want to give you their money. And in that sense, people want to exchange that energy with you. Like people love your work so much that they want you to sell it. Because if you didn't sell it, then they couldn't have it. So me not being, I'm not going to be salesy. Like you don't have to be salesy to sell your work, but looking at it as though like you're providing something for someone else, just completely changed it for me.
That's huge. If you don't put it out there, no one can have it. So yeah, huge. We have some questions and we have 7 minutes. So the first one is, how important is environment and physical location to each artist's creative process? From Gardner Murray. Does it matter where you are?
I was gonna say New York City is just a freaking money suck, so that influences a lot for me personally. Yeah.
I kind of feel like where I live is my is, I mean, it's so much the focus of what I make in both in the studio and social practice. So, and I see that there's another jeweler from Southeast San Francisco on Jeanette on as well, which is so great. But yeah, I feel like I'm so consumed with this place as a place to be, a place to live, a place to grow, and a place to make things about that it is really important. Central.
Yeah, environment has been huge for me. I was in New York for 7 years and felt very claustrophobic. Energized, super energized, but then at the end of the day, just like so exhausted. And now I live in the woods, like a small town in Connecticut, and my creativity has like opened up in ways that like I didn't know that it was going to, just because I have the mental space and I can like see further than 200 yards in front of me. Like I can, it's very mental. So that's helped a lot.
Okay, we have one more question, and I have one other question to end with, unless others come up with questions. But from JB Jones, this is for Kate. Do you feel like the cart helps open the door for collecting for those who engage with it?
Yeah, I do. I feel like I think people are first surprised, so they think about, surprised they can have all these things for what seems like nothing, but really they're giving us original artwork and we're giving them prints, and it's never a one-for-one trade. I mean, people can have as many prints as they want for what they make. So I think in that sense it does, I think, and that was part of our goal, is that people who live in a place can have artwork by the artists who live in the area. So I think, yeah, I guess that was kind of an intention that we didn't realize we had, that people would collect the work that was available.
Does the work that's put into the cart get distributed to the artists who contributed to the cart?
No, that's a really good question. And we hadn't thought of that solution. We're still compiling this second collection that is growing from the trades, and trying to think about, will we have one final big trade where everything is traded for and that's kind of the end, or have an exhibition or make a zine, or I mean, some combination of all of those is possible.
Really fun.
Yeah, it's such an interesting way to interact with art that I haven't heard of before. Are you thinking of taking it beyond San Francisco, or has it?
Well, in What's Precious, there will be an opportunity to trade for some prints, and I think maybe other trades too, right, Ada? So to be discovered.
Right. I think most people are collecting donations, but it's a great idea anyways. Yeah.
Okay. I wanted to pull it all together, kind of, because I feel like we fell off and didn't talk as much about collecting or collections. We did a bit, but so I'd like to ask, have any of your collections or your own work changed in value, and how?
Yes, inflation. Yeah, like the fact that the cost of gold is different day to day drives me crazy.
Is it just gold, or is it other things too? The cost of diamonds has also gone up significantly. There's like little increases every year, kind of like rent. Yeah, and that's always a factor. So like from year to year, I don't think my prices can ever stay static.
feel like I find myself going in the direction of Michelle's work because, again, I'm also struggling to see the worth in producing many pieces and like hating the piece at the end of the day.
Mhm.
But I think another part of the value of my work that's changing is like I said, like I'm trying to kind of make it more valuable to myself rather than kind of pandering to the wider audience. Trying to find a balance in all of those things. Yeah.
I don't have an answer. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, I think it's just, it looks like everyone's struggling with this sort of balancing what you need and how your practice brings value to you as meditation or as expression of your position in the world, and supporting oneself and allowing others to receive your work. It's this huge equation that you're constantly balancing. So, but you're all doing it quite beautifully. I can't wait to see Ada and Kate's show,
Mhm.
the Jewelry Library. Segue to Karen.
Thank you. Thank all of you. What it was a really interesting discussion that could really go on in a lot of different directions. One of the things that really struck me, Ada, you said early on, is sometimes when a piece is out of reach, that sometimes that relationship or meeting the artist has a value. And I definitely believe in that. And I know many artists who think about that and different ways to make their work accessible, even when the price seems out of reach. We did Kif Slemon's show. We did a show a couple of weeks ago at the Jewelry Library, and Kif sort of sees all her exhibitions as a way of kind of accessing her work, even if you don't purchase a piece. And she often creates a book, an affordable book that really gives the sense of that exhibition, so you can, and the pieces in it to take home. So I think it's, again, a kind of continuing conversation, but I love thinking about all the ways that we make things accessible, even when they feel difficult to access. And that is your show. So I'm excited. I hope everyone stops by. I think we're going to also put New York City Jewelry Week in the chat at NewYorkCityJewelryWeek.com. Has an extraordinary array of shows and exhibitions, and Kate and Ada, all the jewelers that are participating in What's Precious are giving workshops. I think you can take a Kate workshop, an earring workshop. Isn't that right, Kate? Yes.
Oh, yeah. And
Yeah.
Ada workshop, and all 9 artists are giving workshops. As
Well,
organized by Ada, incredibly.
Well, I'm looking forward to that, seeing you all in a couple weeks. And our next talk is probably going to be come 2023. Our next 2 talks, which we may do in real life and stream. So all of you who aren't in New York can watch from wherever. Anyway, thank you so much tonight. Thank you, Luci and Emily, as usual. Ada, Michelle, and Kate, thanks. See you soon.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Yeah.